Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. So Blaine blew everybody's mind with the question. My mind is still blown, so we thought, let's call an expert on all this stuff, Eric Eager. He has a keen analytical mind. He's the VP, not just like some guy. He's the VP of Sumer Sports, and they're the kings of analytics. So, Blaine, I will pitch to you. I'll ask Eric Eager the question that I'm still recovering from earlier, because he'll have a keen analytical answer, I'm quite sure. Eric, welcome in.
Oh, what's going on, Eric?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Doing well.
Cool. We'll let you get to know our partner here in crime, Bananas. We'll let Bananas ask the question of, the question that blew everybody's mind. I don't know if it did that, but.
So the question of the week presented by Blaine here early on our show Monday is, what is the best week in the NFL? Some examples: the season opener week, Super Bowl week, draft week, start of the playoffs. What is the best week in the NFL?
Week.
I think I said this off air.
Right.
The draft is my favorite week.
Yeah.
And I think because everybody has hope, everybody comes out a winner. It's multiple days, and they're multiple days in a row. And the buildup is just so big, right? Week one is close, but I think the Thursday night initial game comes, and then you have 2 days of, if you're just an NFL fan, of nothing. And then you have the Sunday where you get to watch 3 games. You have Monday Night Football, of course, and sometimes it's a doubleheader. Week one is close, and then I think the divisional round is also very good. Wild card weekend, now that there's 3 games. I think all those are close, but for me, draft weekend is the best.
What about the scheduling? When the schedule comes out? No? It's not on the list.
That's okay, too. I don't know how much you guys, Blaine, you played, right? So you got to go to like kind of every stadium. If you're a fan of like the Titans, of course, like you can go and say, okay, which games am I going to, right?
You can schedule it.
You can go and travel, for you guys to be like going to like Cincinnati or going to, they always play Indianapolis, but going to like Atlanta or something, which games, you could travel and that are close. That's pretty fun. The games ahead of time, though, so it's just the order, which is kind of a thing. So I think it's still draft.
Well, with that being said, we're on with Eric Eager, VP of Sumer Sports. One more question, that is, I saw that you did the mock draft for the Tennessee Titans. Kind of take us fans, as myself too, including all of us, how you came up with this and what your model does with the analytics to come up with who the Titans are going to take in this year's draft.
Yeah, it's funny because, I think I've always thought that Joe Alt would be the pick for the Titans at 7. Now, we did this as kind of like a group effort, myself, Tay, Seth, Sam Brookhouse, Ben Brown, Sean Syed, all of whom will be on our live draft show Thursday night on YouTube, on our Sumer Sports YouTube channel. But, if the Chargers stay at 5 and the Cardinals stay at 4, I think there's a pretty good chance that Joe Alt is off the board, namely to the Los Angeles Chargers at 5 to go play right tackle, at least initially, for Jim Harbaugh. And so that leaves Oli Fashanu to the Titans to go and be that piece of clay for Bill Callahan to work with in that new offense. So our draft, our modeling, uses a lot of like the Vegas odds. You guys are seeing the reports of J.J. McCarthy's odds for being picked second moving and all that kind of stuff. So, Alt is the favorite to be the first lineman taken. His over-under 7.5. He's a favorite to go under 7.5, which a lot of people are painting that to the Titans. But he's also got a pretty decent chance, about 30%, 40%, to be taken in the top 5. And we think that that's going to be the Chargers if there are no trades into the top 5. And if it goes, Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, or Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and J.J. McCarthy were to fall and there'd be no trades, let's say ahead of the Titans at 7 and McCarthy were to fall, I think the Titans would end up with a possibility of getting only the second lineman in the draft and not the first one in Alt.
There you have it. Eric Eager, VP of Sumer Sports.
Who is your favorite player in this entire draft? Your favorite player?
My favorite player?
Yeah.
I like Latu, the kind of outside linebacker, defensive end from UCLA. I've always been a big fan of not necessarily Chip Kelly's UCLA. Like I don't think that they got better when he was there for sure. No, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But I always felt like he had a very keen eye for front seven players, and they were always big, fast, physical, strong players. And Latu, I know he has the injury, and I know that might be something that hurts him from will he go first? I know he's right now a candidate to be taken by the Falcons at 8. But to me, he's just that great all-around, big, physical, rush the passer kind of guy, can set a good edge. I think the team that gets him is going to be getting kind of like a Danielle Hunter type player who is really productive in the NFL.
Who is your biggest can't miss? Like if you had to bet a year of the Eric Eager salary that this guy can't miss, he'll be a surefire starter, longtime NFL, really good player.
Joe Alt.
Oh.
I think it's really hard for a guy like Joe Alt. Unless Joe Alt gets hurt.
Yeah.
Unless Joe Alt gets hurt, it's really hard for me to see him fail at the NFL level. And I think he's going to go somewhere where he's going to have really good coaching. So if he goes to Los Angeles, he'll have really good coaching. If he goes to Tennessee, he'll have really good coaching. And a lot of times that's a big factor of it. When you're an offensive lineman, you go somewhere where the coach is great. It was always the joke if you went to Philadelphia with Jeff Stoutland as the head coach, or you went to the Patriots with Dante Scarnecchia as the offensive line coach. I'm sorry. And now obviously with Bill Callahan, if you went to Cleveland back in the day where you were going to end up being a good offensive lineman. I think he's one where I think Oli Fashanu you could have a higher ceiling, but I think like there's no player in the draft that has a higher floor than Joe Alt has.
Goodness. Talking ceiling to floor here with Eric Eager. He is at Eric Eager _ VP of Sumer Sports.
Well, Eric Swiggs here on the chat. I wanted to know if you think trading back scenario is realistic for the Titans.
I think so. I mean, anytime there's a quarterback like a J.J. McCarthy, there's a range. There are teams, like, for example, the Falcons, who theoretically could use a quarterback to back up Cousins, the Jets, who could theoretically use a quarterback to back up Aaron Rodgers. And then there are teams like Minnesota, Denver, and Las Vegas who are picking 11, 12, 13. There's always a chance for a falling quarterback, to catch that player. I think if McCarthy or May or whomever the fourth quarterback ends up being, if they get past 6 with the New York Giants, that team might look at pick 7 with Tennessee and say, okay, I might want to trade back. Conversely, if you are the Titans and let's say you have the same grade on Oli Fashanu as you do on Joe Alt, which I know some teams do, and both of those guys are there for you at 7, and you can drop back to 11, and you're pretty sure you're going to get one of those two players, you might do it. And look, if you're the Titans, you pick at 7, you pick at 38. You don't have a third-round pick next year. You don't have a pick from 38 to 106, right? So those are your two adjacent picks, early second all the way until late third, early fourth. You might want to say, okay, well, the price of moving back from 11 to, from 7 to 11, let's say with Minnesota, is I need a couple third-round picks back. I need a second-round pick that I later turn into a third. Because this Titans team has done really well this offseason at recuperating. Mm-hmm. But imagine if you had another day 3 pick, right? Imagine you got that pick back that you traded for L'Jarius Sneed next year. That's I think that obviously the benefit there. The case against it is don't overthink it. Just take Joe Alt, as I just said, one of the safest picks in the whole draft.
I'm concerned with Eric. We're going with Eric Eager, VP of Sumer Sports. What do the Giants project what they're going to take the pick before the Titans? A lot of people are saying wide receiver. We hear offensive lineman. We've even, the scuttlebutt is all about the quarterback, but do they really need a quarterback, or is that just posturing so they can get people to move up? Kind of take us through what your numbers say.
Well, it's a crazy one because you look at the market and the market says wide receiver, the market says offensive lineman, the market says quarterback. All three of those things could be the case. I have a hard time seeing quarterback just because they just gave Daniel Jones a $40 million contract. Right. However, if they were going to commit to Daniel Jones, they could have restructured his contract to sort of guarantee next year. So the way the contracts work is if you restructure the deals, you get cap relief this year in exchange for kind of guaranteeing some of the contract next year. That's the push and pull of it. They have not. When they took the cap increase and they just said, look, we're just going to pay out Daniel Jones in full this year, not prorate the money. And so in theory, they could get off of Daniel Jones next year at very little cost. So they could take a quarterback. I think that, however, I do think that if it goes Harrison, let's say, and then it goes Neighbors, it puts them in a weird spot. They could be trading back for that team that wants a quarterback. And if they do, then obviously the Titans get a really good offensive line prospect. If they take an offensive lineman, you have to remember they took Evan Neal in the top 10 2 years ago. They took Andrew Thomas in the top 10 4 years ago. And so they don't necessarily need a tackle, and it's really hard to sell your fan base and your ownership on taking a guard in the top 10. So I don't think that they're going to get in the way of the Titans getting an offensive lineman. So it's a very interesting pick. I think the most likely thing is the Giants trade that pick more so than they take a player, but I could be wrong. If the Chargers trade the pick or the Cardinals trade the pick, then they might just stay there and take the second best wide receiver.
Well, Eric, you may not know this, but I'm asking for next year's class at quarterback. What good quarterbacks are coming out next year? Because that would then prompt the Giants to do something this year, playing forward till the next year.
Yeah, it's pretty barren. I know that Carson Beck of Georgia is a guy that people like. You have Shadur Sanders, which is Deion Sanders' son, who's quite a good player, but he has some limitations. He's a little thin, and obviously he's going to be a little bit older by the time it gets there. Drew Aller, who's a good prospect, but not of this class from Penn State. Not of the class of any of these guys out of Penn State. You also have Connor Wiegman of Texas A&M, Quinn Ewers of Texas, but Quinn Ewers might not even be the best quarterback on his own team right now with Peyton Manning, his nephew there. And then you have Jalen Milroe of Alabama, Tyler Van Dyke of Miami. Those guys. None of those names are going to excite anybody, right? One of these guys is going to have a Joe Burrow 2019 type of season for any of us to pay attention to him. And so, to your point about the Giants, maybe they see that and they go for quarterback. On the other hand, you've seen a lot of veteran quarterback movement. Dak Prescott is going to be a free agent after this year.
No.
There are other possibilities in that realm as well. Sam Darnold, for example, would be a free agent as well. There are other possibilities. It's a very good question, though, Blaine. I think that's what maybe makes the Giants a little bit desperate and maybe makes them take J.J. McCarthy at 6 if he's there.
One more last question here, and that is, you spoke of age. Does that play into your numbers, age? And I'm going to even say this. I don't know if it really does or not. NIL evaluations and what they're getting paid, does that impact any parts of what you guys do?
It does. So age factors in because, remember Damon Arnett when he was taken by the Raiders? The knock on him was he's a 23-year-old rookie. When you're out there in the Big Ten and you're jamming a 19-year-old kid in coverage, you're just more physically mature than that player. When you get in the NFL, everything's evened out, right, Blaine? So you're looking. It's more of a how hard it is to evaluate the player when he's older than everybody else in college. And then it does factor into the ceiling. If you draft a 20-year-old Jamar Chase or 21-year-old Jamar Chase, he's just got more room to grow, and you're going to be the beneficiary of that growth if you're the NFL team and not LSU, right? And so those are the two competing factors. NIL and the transfer portal, which are combined, in my opinion, as an effect here. It's going to change it, right? Because older players that come through the draft are going to be less mature, right? Back in the day, you'd go somewhere, you'd redshirt for a year, you'd practice, and even if you transferred, you'd have to sit a year if you transferred across, and so you still got time to develop. these older players, some of whom have been in 1 or 2 or 3 programs by now, they're just not developing in the same system. So players who are older, it used to be that they had higher floors. They were more mature. They might not have as high a ceilings because they're already aged out a little bit, but they had at these higher floors because they were developed. They were smarter, more mature players. Now those players come in, they don't have that maturation because they haven't played that much college football, relatively speaking, in the same spot, and they also don't have the ceiling because they're older physically.
There you have it, Eric Eager, VP of Sumer Sports.
Who is somebody that you think will go later than all like the guys on TV are saying? Who will drop this year? Candidate for that?
I think one of McCarthy's the classic one. Every single year that last quarterback falls. As you guys know with Levis, he fell further than everybody thought. I think besides that, I think Quinyon Mitchell, the corner from Toledo, who right now is the favorite to be the first cornerback taken. As you got, J.C. Horn was that player, or sorry, it was Patrick Surtain once, and it was the second corner take was A.J. Terrell. Corners are really hard to project who will go where in the draft, and I think so. Quinyon Mitchell to me is somebody who I like a lot, but I just don't know. He might fall, he might go 8th, right? He might fall all the way to 22nd or something. But I think the range on him is quite big.
Who's the player most likely to get traded, do you think, during the draft? The current NFL player.
So whenever I do mock drafts, I trade Trey Smith, the guard for the Chiefs, who's coming up, Tennessee kid, coming up on his 5th year, has been awesome so far, won 2 Super Bowls with Kansas City, coming up on his 4th year. But they probably have to move Creed Humphrey to guard at some point. There's not a ton of room for him. And so I want him to get paid because he's been an awesome Chief, and he's not going to get paid with the Chiefs. And much like L'Jarius Sneed, I think he's got to go somewhere else to get paid. He could be one. I think Jahan Dotson's another one with Washington with the new regime. Former first-round pick, could be out of favor there. Brandon Ayuk's the big one, right? If Brandon Ayuk, that one could be an A.J. Brown, right, where he's traded on draft day, and it's a huge splash. Those are some candidates, I think.
Man, all good stuff. Hanging out with Eric Eager at Eric Eager _ VP of Sumer Sports.
Well, naturally, the favorite to be drafted to the Tennessee Titans is not Alt, it's Brock Bowers. What do you say about Brock Bowers and where he will go?
Well, Brock Bowers is a great prospect. As good of a tight end prospect as there has been. The problem is tight ends just don't work. The last tight end who has been drafted in the first round that signed a second contract with the team that drafted him is David Njoku. They all Evan Ingram signed with a different team and did well. TJ Hawkinson was traded and has done well since. The hard part about drafting tight ends high is it's such a tough position to play. You're going up against Blaine Bishop every half the snap. And you're going up against Keith Bullock. So you're going up against Keith Bullock the other snap, right? And it's such a varied position because you have to be able to block a 6-eye, you have to be able to reach a 7 technique, then you got to be able to outrun a guy like Blaine in the secondary, and you got to know the routes, you got to know the blocking schemes. It's just a lot to put on a guy's plate. And so historically you've seen, the guys do kind of be slow to go when they're in their first contract and then go other places and blossom. Even Njoku was not a very good player for Cleveland until the second contract. Greg Olsen, a okay player for the Bears, a great player for the Panthers. It's just a really tough position. So when you draft that player, you're looking for him to come in and be a contributor, like the Jets will take him, let's say at 10 or something like that. And I just, Kyle Pitts, those guys, you're almost always disappointed with what you get from them, at least initially.
Lastly, this is for Mickey. He's the commissioner of UFL. Yeah. Is there any player in that league that you think could start immediately for the National Football League?
Well, you got to take kickers out of it because
kickers. They got some good kickers.
All the kickers are NFL caliber in that league. Mm-hmm. I should start right away. Gosh, I think Marquez Stevenson, the former SMU SMU kick returner, wide receiver, could be a starting kick returner in the new format in the NFL.
Ooh. Who's he with?
He plays for the San Antonio Brahmas.
Oh, okay. There you have it.
Former Bill. He was drafted by the Bills in the 5th round. He didn't make it. Now he's. I think everything else is like a little. I know Garyon Conley's been pretty good there, former draft pick. Yeah, there are a few guys I think will putter around. It's almost always been the specialist though. Kevontae Turpin was a USFL player, has been good in the NFL. Brandon Aubrey, Nick Polk. Like the spring league players have almost always been special teamers.
I do have one more, and it's a current Titan. Have you evaluated Treylon Burks thus far, even when he did play outside of his injuries that he had?
Like I wouldn't say I've just put a huge amount of eyes on him. I would say that there's a reason the Titans are kind of going at the position. Both in this draft, they'll probably take one high, and they've gotten Ridley into the fold and gotten Hopkins in the fold since drafting him. I think that they're pretty disappointed in his play, both when he's healthy and when not healthy. And I wonder if he's just if he would fit in maybe in a different passing game that's more of a underneath kind of crossers, yards after the catch kind of structure relative to what the Titans kind of want to be, which seems like a down the field passing game.
Gotcha. Great stuff, Eric.
Hey, fantastic stuff. Breaking down the UFL and the NFL and everything else. We always appreciate hearing from you, Eric, again, at Eric Eager _ and anywhere you want to consume Sumer Sports. It is fantastic content all the time. Thank you. Enjoy your draft week, sir.
Yeah.
Blaine, Mickey, have a good one. Take care, guys.
Yes, sir. Man, love talking to Eric Eager. Dude, it's such